Once upon a time in America, when racial discrimination was at its peak, one man dared to dream of equality. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was born in 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, a time when black and white Americans were treated very differently. Black people had separate schools, buses, restaurants, and even churches. But young Martin always believed, in God's eyes, we are all equal. Martin grew up watching injustice around him. One day, when he was just a child, his white friend's parents said Martin could no longer play with him just because of his skin color. That moment changed him forever. He decided to fight, not with hate, but with love. He studied deeply, became a preacher, and began speaking out for justice. Inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. King believed in nonviolence, peaceful protest as the strongest weapon. In 1955, something powerful happened. A woman named Rosa Parks refused to give up her bus seat to a white man. She was arrested, but her courage sparked a movement. Dr. King led the Montgomery bus boycott, encouraging thousands of black people to walk instead of taking buses. After more than a year of peaceful protest, segregation on buses was declared illegal. That was just the beginning. Over the next decade, Dr. King led countless marches, gave speeches, and inspired millions. His most famous speech, "I Have a Dream," was delivered in 1963 before over 250,000 people in Washington, D.C. He said, "I have a dream that one day, my children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." His words echoed across the world. Dr. King's dream was becoming real. Laws began to change. In 1964, he received the Nobel Peace Prize, becoming one of the youngest people ever to win it. But his fight came with danger. He was arrested many times, threatened, and hated by those who opposed equality. Yet he never gave up. Then came April 4, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. The world lost a voice of peace. But his dream didn't die. It lived on, in the hearts of millions who still believe in justice, equality, and love. Today, people all around the world celebrate his life every year on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, honoring a man who changed history, not with violence, but with vision. Dr. King once said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." That is the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the man who, after the famous "I Have a Dream" speech in 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. became the symbol of hope for millions of Americans. But success brought challenges. As his voice grew louder, so did the resistance. By 1965, Dr. King began fighting not only for civil rights, but also for economic equality, and he believed freedom meant nothing if people were still poor, jobless, and hungry. He said, "What good is having the right to sit at a lunch counter if you can't afford a hamburger?" In 1965, he led the historic Selma to Montgomery March in Alabama, demanding voting rights for black Americans. The peaceful protesters were brutally attacked by police. The world watched in horror. But the nation also woke up. Soon after, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed, a major victory in the civil rights movement. Dr. King's influence was now global. He met presidents, inspired leaders, and gave hope to oppressed people around the world. But even among his supporters, some young activists began to lose patience with peaceful protests. They wanted faster, stronger action. Yet Dr. King stood firm. Violence is not the answer. Hate only multiplies hate. He started the Poor People's Campaign, planning to unite poor Americans, black, white, Latino, and Native, to demand fair jobs, housing, and wages. His dream was becoming bigger than race. It was about humanity itself. However, the opposition grew stronger. The FBI monitored his every move, spreading lies to silence him. He received death threats almost daily, but he kept going because he believed his mission came from God. In his final speech on April 3, 1968, in Memphis, Dr. King said words that felt almost prophetic. "I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land." The next evening, April 4, 1968, he was assassinated on the balcony of his hotel room. The world wept, but even in death, his message grew stronger. Across the world, people took to the streets, holding candles and banners that read, "I have a dream." Schools, streets, and cities were renamed in his honor. In 1986, the United States declared Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a national holiday to remember the man who changed the world through peace and courage. Today, his dream still inspires leaders, students, and ordinary people everywhere to fight against injustice, racism, and inequality. Every time someone stands up for what's right without violence, Dr. King's dream lives again. He taught us that true power is not in weapons or anger, it's in love, faith, and unity. Faith, he said, is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. And that's what he did, step by step, dream by dream, leading a nation from darkness into light. That is the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a man who dreamed not just for black people, but for all of humanity. That one day, freedom and justice would roll down like waters.